my message is I just want to share that, me and my sisters are among a lot of successful entrepreneurs that are obviously successful financially and in their businesses are successful, but we keep hearing the message that you ladies either have to choose to make an impact or choose to make money. And, at first I was going to conform to that idea. And I kind of talked to my sisters in regards to like what really our mission is for our business. And we really want to be able to do both. We want to be able to make an impact in our community and at the same time make money to be able to continue to pour into our community, continue to pour into ourselves. So my message really is like, don't let anyone like put you in a box, no matter what level of success you might see them at. It's your story, it's your journey, and it's your mission. So if your mission is to make an impact and make some money, you can do that. And so don't let anyone ever keep you in that box. So that's
Period.
my message.
Period. Hello, and welcome to the Here to Uplift podcast, where we center the stories of impactful changemakers, entrepreneurs, and community leaders who have done the hard work of uplifting themselves through adversity to get where they are today, and now uplift others along the way in their journeys. I'm Lolo Fisher, your host, lover of all things wellness, healing, and empowerment, and I would greatly appreciate if you show us your support by liking, subscribing, and sharing this podcast with others. Let's get into it. All right, here we go. Welcome back to the Here to Uplift podcast. I am here with my special guest, Christina Inshong, co-founder and owner of Mind, Body, Soul Lab. And I am super excited that we're going to have a conversation kind of crossing paths. We're going to talk business and working with co-founders. We're going to talk womanhood, I should say, motherhood, all the little intricacies that come with that. So I'm going to let you introduce yourself. Tell us who you are and what you do before we get into the depths.
All right. Thank you so much for having me here today, Lolo. It's actually, I was like, when I first met you, I'm going to get a spot on that podcast and I'm going to come meet her because you're just like such a phenomenal spirit. But I'm Christina Inshong. I am one of the co-founders of the Mind, Body, Soul Lab. But before I'm that, I am a mom. I am entrepreneur. I'm a God-fearing woman, and I'm also a professional, mental health professional as well. So yeah, I thought that this platform would be a great place to just kind of share my story and connect with you. So super excited to be here.
I love that. I love that you say before that, like, yes, I have this business, but before that, I'm all these things. Like right away, that sets the tone and priority for like what you value in your life. Yes. And I think we need to do more of that because I'm thinking of when we go into networking spaces or just in general, going around town, you're meeting people. There's always that question of, oh, what do you do? Yeah. And that always like interests me because sometimes we're in seasons where what we do is an accurate representation of the things we value, but other times not so much, right?
Not so much. Yeah, absolutely. I definitely think that having a balance, especially being a woman, is really hard. And sometimes we get so consumed and I need to either make it in my career so I can take care of my kids, or I got to lose this 50, 60 pounds so that I can look good for this birthday or this trip. But I think we really forget that we need that like whole balance in our lives. Yeah. And number one, you're woman first. I'm Christina before I'm even a mother, and I'm God's child before I'm even a mom. So I have to sometimes remember those things. I get really lost in like being a mom and making sure she has everything that she could ever dream of. I only have one child. Yes. So, but then I realized that I am now pouring from this empty cup.
Yes.
Yes. So it's a constant battle.
Yeah, I feel like it's something I used to say to some of my clients back when I was actually teaching in Merced was you have to remember who you are at your core. With any action you take, with anything you do, who are you? And if you lose that, that's when we start feeling like our world is frantic, right? Yes. So I'm already loving this. There's so many directions we could go. So I kind of want to start with business so that we can get into the juice of like life.
I love that.
So tell me about Mind, Body, Soul Lab and how I met you originally was, at a downtown block party in San Jose. You were telling me about the Litness Fitness class. So can you tell us a little bit about that and what you do with your founders?
Yeah, absolutely. So me and my two younger sisters, Kelly and Tracy, we started the Mind, Body, Soul Lab last May 2022. But we didn't actually launch our first group fitness class until October 2022. We really just took our time to really like learn the business before we even launched it, because it was really brand new to us. My younger sister Kelly is actually a former UCLA women's basketball player and gold Olympian for the Philippines. So she had fitness background, but basketball and group fitness is totally different, right? And it was just really weighing into my heart about us starting our own business, a family business. I would call her 9 a.m. before like work meetings. I'm like, we need to, devise a plan, get a kitchen or, a restaurant, whatever. We need to make some money. We need to do something, right? And she's like, don't bother me with this at 9 a.m. And one day she calls me and was like, I got the idea. Like, let's start group fitness classes, very similar to the flavor that they have in like Atlanta, Houston. We don't have that here in the Bay. So let's create our own. And Lola, when I tell you, I was like literally like shaking, like that excitement, crying, shaking feeling. And I was like, okay, let's do it. And so we started our class in October, and we've been at Punch King Fitness downtown San Jose since January with Marisa Mejia. I know that's one of your guys' friends. Yep. And that's how I ended up at that block party. I was just downtown with Punch King, representing our brand as well. They allow us to host our classes there and really just bring this inclusive fitness space to the community of San Jose. And so, that's kind of how we got started. And we're trying to push out our mission all over the Bay Area and hopefully other areas in Cali too.
Yeah. What is that mission?
Definitely to create an inclusive space for Black and brown people. Right now, what we've noticed in just the fitness space and coming from a blended biracial family, there's just a lot of spaces that didn't really cater to us, didn't cater to the type of music we like, the flavor and style, and just warm, welcoming feeling that we have like when we come into our home or into a relative's home. You don't have that in the fitness space. It's very bro-ish or competitive or, it's a scary space to walk into a gym or into a fitness class where no one is talking to you. So we really wanted to create a space for like our Black and brown counterparts and allow a space for them to feel like it's home. And honestly, not just for Black and brown people, it's for everybody. But we wanted anyone at any demographic, at any level you are in your fitness to feel like this is a space that I can come, I can work out, I can have community, I can build consistency. They have culture, which you're not really going to find in some UJAM classes or a Zumba. Zumba, it's a different style. It's not ours. I love Zumba, but that's not really like for us. So that's definitely our mission, is to just create this inclusive space and fitness for everyone.
Yeah. Well, not to make you like pitch while you're here necessarily, but
I feel like I'm always pitching.
Right.
So.
It's part of it. It's part of the process. But I got really excited when you were first telling me about the classes, and I was asking you like, so what makes it different than Zumba and what classes do you offer? And you were telling me even just the difference between your morning and your evening classes, right? Like the vibe and the culture you create. I know when I was running Uplift Merced and just teaching various classes, I had a huge difference in what soul flow yoga was and trap yoga, but both of them were meant for folks of color to get moving, exercising, healing in a way that actually like meets our culture, meets our needs, meets us where we're at. And it sounds like Litness Fitness, the class itself, does that. So can you tell us like what the cultures are of those classes and why you said it that way?
Yeah, absolutely. Again, I come from a biracial blended family. My mom is Filipino, straight from Tondo, Manila. And our dad is Black American from South Central Los Angeles.
Okay,
LA.
So,
yes, and so just growing up in that environment and growing up with a blended family, hip hop culture, Black culture, that's really what we grew up around, and that's really what we embody. And me being actually not Black, my stepdad is, but he raised me since 3 years old.
Okay.
For me, it's really important having Black sisters and Black brothers and having a biracial daughter. I feel like growing up in San Jose, there's 3% Black people here. So who is
so interesting?
It's so small, and like, but who is really advocating except for that small sector of Black people here? So I feel like it's my responsibility, also being a privileged, part white woman, to also carry out that mission with my family and just really create a space where when we're in the gym, we want to hear hip hop, we want to hear rap, we want to hear reggaeton, we want to hear trap music. I don't want censorship on my music. If it's a kids class, then we're going to have music appropriate for the kids.
Right. But this is for me.
This is for us, where I want to hear what I'm listening to in my AirPods. And so, yeah, that's really what's important to us. And I've been to a lot of gyms where I'm like, can we play something else? I don't really want to listen to this. And, you know,
it's like straight rock. You're like, I can't
EDM. I can't get with that, which I love it for a different time and a different space.
Right.
And so we really just didn't want that censorship with our class. And so with Litness Fitness, and we also have Litness Fitness after hours, we have 2 classes. And so Litness Fitness on Saturdays, we get real hype, we get real crunk, everything, hyphy, everything you can think of. We pay a lot of homage to the South, to the Bay, to LA, to the East Coast, the Midwest. But on Wednesday nights, we get a little more ratchet, a little more, I wouldn't say X-rated, but the music gets a little bit more
a little raunchy.
Yeah, a little more raunchy, uncensored. We turn off the lights, and we turn on the LED lights. We bring out the glow sticks, and we just really turn up.
Oh, I love it.
And it's not like a workout. It's like working out but having fun at the same time, and you feel really accomplished at the end. We do soul trains after as well, as a confidence building exercise. So women that you would never think, and not just women, we have men going down. And actually we have this guy who's really amazing. He's an Indian gentleman, super amazing, and he outbeats all the girls, all the women, and he goes down that slow train and he works his little hips, and it's just a great time.
Oh my gosh, once I pop this baby out, count me in.
Yes, please.
I'm excited. Although you say after hours, like what time?
6 p.m.
Okay, I could do that. I was
still
like,
daylight outside.
Girl, I had the nickname Grandma while I was in college. Like, that's how sad it was. I was like, 10 p.m. I'm tired. It's my bedtime. Let me be.
Oh no, Lolo. It'll change though. After a couple years with the baby, you're gonna get your flow back. That's okay.
We'll see. I'm up so early though. That's my challenge. Like, I just wake up early naturally, so I think that's why I get so tired at night. Like, if I'm out past 10, know that I love you. Like,
this is either your birthday, your anniversary.
It is a reason. Yes, there is a reason. Oh, but I'm so excited. I love this. I'm excited to take the Litness Fitness class eventually. Like, that's a promise. I will be there once I'm able to. Right now, I think I might break a hip if I try, but I'm excited about it though. And I love that you created this culture, because when you say inclusive, I'll say it this way. When you say inclusive, that could mean a lot of things to a lot of people. So it's inclusive with a target, right? Like, it's for everyone, but we know who we're serving. And with San Jose and the Bay in general having this hip hop culture, I love that you're able to say, and we're 3% Black, and I don't identify within that community, but I experience this community in a certain way. Like, to be able to own that and say that is something so many people miss and don't do. And that's where, to me, like, true inclusivity comes from. It's a deeper awareness and knowledge, but it's cultural humility. Not saying, I know my Black people, I got all my Black people, but saying, like, whether I identify with this group or not, I want to make sure you feel included, and I'm intentionally making it so that there's elements of your culture in this space. I love that. Like, love it. So you said with your sisters, you started this business and you identify as a biracial blended family. So can you tell me what did that look like from childhood, like your initial understanding of being mixed, of having a mixed family, of having a blended family? Like, what did that look like?
It definitely was a unique situation, I would say, or not situation, just a unique dynamic. But it was filled with so much love, which was something that I just knew that on my mom's side of the family, that was just like unconditional, and on my stepdad's side of the family. I am also half Italian and Hispanic on my biological father's side, but I was raised with my mom, and I was raised with my stepdad since 3 years old. And so me being the only, and my mom being the only non-Black members of our family, it was a little bit weird when we would go out to eat, or, you know, people would kind of look at us, or I'd be like, oh yeah, that's my dad. Or, you know, my sisters would be like, that's my mom. And my brothers too. And my mom's super Filipino. And they would just kind of be like, how are you guys related? And it would really, I would feel like I'd have to explain. Yeah. But my brothers and my sisters would be like, we ain't got to tell them nothing. And we don't have to say anything to them. And for me, I'm like, well, people don't understand. So it's okay for us to like share that part of our life and our journey, because it might help other people understand just like blended families, interracial couples and marriages and things like that. So it was really interesting also being like the only one with a different last name as well. I actually carried my mom's last name. So everybody was a Hayes and I'm an Inciong. And my little sister was an Inshong Hayes, but she would like only use Hayes. So then I was like still alone. So that dynamic was different, but it still made, I still never felt any like less, or I always felt like blood could never, like 100% blood could never bond me and my family. And so, so a lot of people growing up would be like, oh, you want to be Black, or the way that I talk, the little twang in my voice. Right. And I would just, before I used to get offended, of course.
Yeah, it's like a criticism of who you are.
Yeah, and it's like, no, this is how I was raised. If you were raised in wherever in Japan and, you know, you were growing up around that culture, you would probably, you know, be a little bit more Japanese like, right? So for me, I really just embrace it more than anything. And I take a responsibility also, like with my family. Sometimes they're like, you advocate more than we do. And it's not that I try to, I just feel like I do have like a responsibility for my family and for my daughter. And I feel like we don't take enough ownership of like the parts that we play in this world being not Black, right? And understanding like our privilege and things like that. So it's just an important mission for me, and I just try to like live it every single day.
I love that. So I'm hearing that you didn't necessarily feel that left out feeling that we hear so commonly from blended families. You didn't feel that from your family, but any criticism you were getting was from externally, from the outside world. So to share a little bit on my side, you know, like my stepson is Mexican and Nicaraguan, and it's funny because he has certain facial features that look like he could be Black. So when we're together, like people just assume like, oh yeah, he's mixed, he's Black. And I think it's hilarious because there was a little kid in our neighborhood who asked him like, oh, are you Black? And he was like, kinda. Like he didn't even know what to say. It just made me laugh so hard. Like I couldn't say like no, yes. I'm just like, you know what? I love it. Like if you feel it, embrace it, you know, because it's part of being a blended family, right? It's part of being in an environment where cultures are blending and mixing, and it's not always about saying like I'm this or that. It's like I'm this and that, and having all these just beautiful culminations of cultures. Like it makes me so excited. I'm of course mixed myself, so there's layers to it, right? Like I'm mixed, and then of course my partner is Nicaraguan and Mexican, and then bringing in our stepson, and then we're getting ready to have a baby. It's gonna be all mixed up.
A whole blended
a lot of
family.
Yes. Yeah. So my question here, right, in thinking about what we learned from this, and I'm just thinking about other people who are mixed or have blended families that haven't felt this secure in their relationships and in their families. What did your family do to make you feel so solid from a young age that regardless of your last name, regardless of your color matching your siblings, right, that you felt this is my home, this is my family, nobody needs to question me, because I can hear that confidence. Right? So what did that look like being poured into at that time?
I will say, you know, coming from like 3 different backgrounds, growing up around like my Italian side, my Filipino side, and my Black side. My Black side is really the side that embraced me the most. Just one of the most welcoming, beautiful cultures that I've ever like had the honor and privilege of being raised in and experienced. But it was like my grandmother and rest her soul, my grandma Mimi, you know, my, you know, we would say like, oh, like stepdad or step cousin or step, and she would be like, girl, nobody stepped on you. I know you're not a step. You're mine. You're my grandbaby. You're my grandchild. And
I love that.
I was like, okay, you're right. You know, and it wasn't really until like you experience like hardship in your family and you see like who's like really standing by you, and it would be my immediate family. It'd be my stepdad, which was it's truly my father, my mom, and my siblings, right? And when it came to like even my Italian side and my Filipino side, there would be a lot of criticism, right? My mom coming from a third world country, coming here, having me with my, American Italian dad, and then having another baby with a black man and getting married to him. They shun her, and they, of course they shamed her for that. And, but my family, we just stayed really close, and we communicate a lot. We talk a lot. We talk about these type of issues. Okay. My stepdad would always tell me, and he would just teach us, like, Christina, like, this is your family, right? This is your home. But I need you all to understand what family and home that you have. Your little sister, she's biracial, because I'd be really proud being Filipino. Like, we're Filipino. And my dad would be like, yeah, you're Filipino, but to the eyes of the world, your sister's a black woman. So we always have to remember. And
I love that y'all had these conversations. And
I'm like, what are you talking about? Ignorant, because I'm a kid. And I'm like, it wasn't until I was a little bit older and someone close in our family, in our Filipino side, a little cousin, called my sister the N-word, said a derogatory term towards her. And when it made me realize, okay, we're not like everyone else, right? And we are different. And so the biggest thing was just communicating with each other, having really super open conversations. Now that we're all adults, I feel like sometimes the conversation is a little too open with our parents. But that's the foundation that they built with us. And it wasn't like they were just super lenient and didn't have rules for us. It was just, they didn't have parents that converse with them, and they saw how important it was for them to talk to their children and have open dialogue and real dialogue, genuine dialogue, not that sugarcoating dialogue. You're going to face things, Christina, with your siblings, and how are you going to react? What are you going to do? What is your role? So those conversations really helped.
Oh, I love that, because your position is so important. Like, and I say that generally, anybody, any person, your position is so important. But if you don't recognize your position in life, the fact that your dad had actually said your sister is going to experience this situation differently than you, I love that. Like, it brings back a specific memory. In college, I've always been doing too much, so I was getting involved in all the things, right? Like club, sorority, organization, all this stuff. But it was a season for me of really exploring my blackness as I won't even say as part of my identity, like entering into blackness as my identity, because I always felt before that, being in predominantly white environments, that it was like I'm this or that, and I always had to pick. And I was like, nah, like I am what I am who I am. And in that season, the communities I connected most with was our Black Student Union group, our African American Student Association. I joined a sorority, Alpha Kappa Alpha, and just all the things that started happening. I was like, I belong. I have this community now. And I went home to tell my family, and I got really mixed responses. And I love my dad to pieces. This is, part of growth process for everybody. But my dad is white, and technically he's Polish, Irish, Syrian, right? Like he's mixed himself, but to the world he is white, and he's always been taught, in his own livelihood that he just comes as white to the world. So when I was excited to be like, hey, I got a position in this organization and I joined this one, he goes, why are you joining all these Black organizations? Are you ashamed of your white side? You're not just Black. It's like, okay, well, do you see me? Like, can you look at my face and think about how I look to the world? Because while you know who you are, what you look like, and that, yes, like I'm your DNA, like that's not how I look to the world. If I'm walking down the street, I am walking down the street as a Black woman. Like, people might say like, oh yeah, she's mixed, she's biracial, but from the surface, people don't always know that one. You can guess it, sure, but regardless, I'm Black. It is what it is.
I'm Black, Dad.
Yeah, so it was right. I'm like, I don't know if like there's some kind of a glare on this mirror. Like, I know you've worn glasses since second grade, but let's check this a little bit. But so it was interesting because it made me feel so alienated in that moment. And now looking back, I realized it was much more a matter of like insecurity in him, that he felt like I was leaving him behind. Yeah. Right. And I think that's a whole nother topic in blended families that can be challenging. Blended,
I've been there.
Multiracial families, right? The different layers of that. But I'm curious on your perspective of this, and it may be a little controversial, so we'll see. But you kind of mentioned like if you're going out to dinner and people are like looking at you like, do they belong together? Who's the dad? Who's like what? when you get into those situations of people like questioning what you are, because I hate that question, but right, what race, what ethnicity you are, or who belongs to who, and like these assignments and things like that, you clearly said like, I had no problem explaining. I kind of felt like I had to explain, but other folks in your family are like, they don't need to know. It doesn't matter. Not their business.
Right.
Whose role is it to explain? Whose responsibility is it to explain? And I guess why? Like, why?
I mean, I feel like if I'm asked that question, I feel like it's my responsibility to explain, because like knowledge is power, and people don't know unless you share your story or you share your testimony. And so sometimes I think I go into like this like super like Black Panther activist like mode sometimes, like when people like, oh, you want to know? Let me tell you. Right.
Yeah.
And I just think it's important for me to share, because I'm not a Black person. And for somebody that's not Black, and it's so important to them to have this culture where it is surrounded around what we grew up around, in just like the fitness space, I'm able to say and like tailor that back to my family and tailor that back to my daughter, and why it's so important. Sometimes I think it's sometimes overload, because my daughter being multiracial or biracial, Black and half of everything I am, you know, I've really just like embedded it in her that you're a Black woman, and, you know, things are, you know, might be a little bit different for you in certain, you know, areas, Kay, and, you know, it's not always going to be like that, but there's going to just be people you run into that are going to treat you wrong for simply the color of your skin. And so now my daughter's like, oh, I'm Black. I'm 100% Black. And so I kind of understand where your dad is coming from, because it's like, okay, wait, hold on, Kelani. I don't want you to forget that you're Filipino and that you're Italian, and I don't want you to forget, you know.
Nah, I'm black, blackity black. All right.
That is my daughter on the mic right now. You just like totally duplicated her. She's like, I'm black, mom. And I'm like, okay, so let's go back to the drawing board. So again, I do truly feel like, you know, I'm like the first person in my family to speak up on it, because like the rest of my family doesn't really like feel the need to explain. But I feel like it's just power to educate people about different families and different family dynamics, because people truly don't understand. My stepdad's 65 years old. Well, I keep calling him my stepdad, and he's gonna slap me when he hears this interview. Sorry, Dad, I love you. Yeah, I know we ain't stepping on you, guy. My bad. But you know, people will stare at us because he's a 65-year-old Black man, and I'm like 33-year-old. They probably think I'm Hispanic, or Mexican for like 100% or whatever. They think Islander, Hawaiian, whatever. And they probably think like he's my sugar daddy or something. You know, people will stare at us like, why is she with him? And I'm like, it's my dad, okay? Like, seriously, my dad. And so again, like, I feel like I'll take that responsibility any day, because people are ignorant. And if you want to know and you're giving me the opportunity to tell you, then I'm going to speak my piece for sure.
And I like this. And it's also interesting because I think there's lots of sides probably, right? But there's two sides that like clearly come to my mind of hearing this, is like, you have to be almost like called or given this gift to want to educate, to want to help, to want to be an ally in that way, because otherwise explaining is just exhausting and taxing, like to do it day in and day out. And I know even in my own life, like I think I was a lot more alike you in thought around this previously. And more recently, I'm like, no, I don't feel like explaining. Like, I'm just tired of it. Like, it got to a point, like, I don't know where that exact point was, but it got to a point in recent years where I was like, I don't care to explain anymore. Like, you can figure it out, or you'll find out on your own. But I'm so curious, because I genuinely loved educating people around these topics before, that I'm like, will it come back? Or, you know, am I just burnt out? Like, what does that actually mean right now for me? Like, in terms of being called to educate on these things.
I truly think that it's going to come in waves for sure. I think life comes in different waves all the time. Your motivation, your drive to even explain anything to anyone. But I think it's valuable to like filter what you do respond to. If it's someone that's like completely ignorant, and I know they're being ignorant, you're probably not going to get an explanation from me. You're probably going to get checked at the door right then and there. So that's the reality of that. But if it's someone that is genuinely wanting to learn, then I am more than willing to explain and like share that knowledge. And I don't know why God created me like this, but like you said, it's almost like God creates you to want to be a voice and want to be able to share. Before we even got into fitness, I told my sisters, I was like, we should do just like a little Instagram live podcast. Not even to like, you know, get into the whole podcast game like 1000%, but more so just to be able to share like our insight. And like, I'm constantly like pouring into my family and friends. That's kind of, I'm like a healer. And even to people I don't know, right? And someone could be crying on the street and they walk past me. I'm not going to walk past them. I'm going to embrace them. And that's just kind of who I am. And it takes a lot out of you. It truly does. But I think like, it goes back to what we were saying earlier, having that balance in your life. I try to, you know, make sure that I get dressed. Like today, I made sure to get dressed for you, do a little bit of makeup. Thank you. You know, and like after this, I might go grab me just something to eat in Santana Row, even though I should be going straight home to my family. I'm gonna grab me a little meal.
Who defines the shoulds? Who defines the shoulds?
Who defines that? You know, and I'm gonna go grab me something to eat. I'm gonna get home. I have a meeting tonight. I'm going to do my daughter's hair, but it's just like a little bit of a balance of everything. Like I got a little bit in for myself today.
Right.
I did stuff for my job. I'm going to do stuff for my daughter, my man, my dog. And so again, I think it's just really like having that balance that allows you to keep going and allow you to keep pouring. Because if you just are constantly pouring and not taking anything from anywhere else, then you're not going to be able to sustain.
I actually saw, like, there's that common quote of like, you can't pour from an empty cup, right? But I saw this this piece that was actually, it was a devotional, and it was talking about overflow and how a lot of times in faith spaces we will pray for overflow, or like, God, give us this feeling of overflow, give us the reality of overflow, abundance, whatever it looks like. And it gave me a new perspective on it, because I'm thinking, fill up the cup and then so that you can pour it out onto others. And they were like, no, your cup should always be full. The idea of overflow is that God gives you that extra bit. So you have to fill your cup for you. The overflow that God gives you is what gets spread out to others. So it's not about emptying out every time and refilling. Like, don't ever let yourself get empty. That's the point. And I was like, whole mind blown. This like changed my whole perspective on this little quote I've been using for way too many years, right? So now I've been like really thinking of, you know, when we think about scarcity versus abundance mindset even, and then bring faith into perspective on that, like as God-fearing women, what does it look like to give from overflow, not to give from enough?
You know, I don't even think I know, or I don't even know if you know for sure, because that just kind of like took my mind to a whole new galaxy, because it's like, you're right. I think that we're always constantly trying to just get to the top of that cup to be able to share, and it's not an overflow. And how do we get to that overflow space? But I think, you know, for me, I know that like when I'm not spiritually aligned, I'm not praying. It's really hard for me to get to that abundant feeling in my life. And I'm always feeling like I'm catching up. But when I have like, when I make that time, not have the time, when I make that time and I'm intentional in my time that I spend with God and in prayer and in worship, that is when I feel the most full. That is when I feel that I can overflow and give that excess to other people. But sometimes I think like our minds just race, where like life is constantly going, and you do forget to lean into him and pour into him. And you know, I just think we forget that a lot. And so that's something that I'm working on currently as I'm trying to balance all these other things. I didn't mention that I need a balance, like continuously balance my relationship with God, right? Because that's really what is like keeping me going and being here and making me be able to have like a full day of things and not feel like completely exhausted at the end of my day.
Exactly. So it brings me to a question / thought. You said that you would identify yourself as a healer, right? Yes. Okay, so that is a term that I do identify myself as a healer as well, but I struggle with it sometimes, because when I feel like I'm empty in some sense, I'm like, I can't give in that same way. And then I almost feel guilt or shame when I'm not able to put out that empathic energy or healing energy to the folks that I like love and care about. But I realize there's a process to it now. Like, it's taken me years, right, to figure that out. But I'm so interested, because there's this concept of like, whatever your calling or profession is, usually you're not too good at it for yourself, right? So like great at healing others, but probably because you need a lot of healing yourself and you're like going through the journey. Like plumbers will do everybody else's house, but their pipes are broken at home, right? Like anybody who's doing cleaning, everybody else's house is beautiful, theirs is a mess. So in the sense of us being healers, being fitness professionals, what does that look like for you in terms of how you take care of the home side before you go to the visitors?
That is like really, really just like hard, honestly. Yeah. I went through like a period of kind of like losing myself some years ago, just like not really knowing like what I wanted to do with my life, not knowing like what direction I wanted to be in my like relationship, just everything, just not taking care of myself the way that I should be. And so I moved away to Vegas for 2 years, which was really nice, and I was away from my partner for those 2 years. He came back and forth, of course, to be with me and his daughter, our daughter, but he was working still here in the Bay. But I spent that 2 years just really focused on like myself and my relationship with God and my relationship with my daughter. Ultimately, like I was, of course, like intentionally meditating, intentionally praying, and making sure I was at the gym, at least 5 days a week, making sure that I was just doing things that filled my cup as far as like making a homemade aioli sauce. I know that's something that's like not a big thing, but like I don't want to buy store-bought and I don't want to have to go all the way to a restaurant. I want to like accomplish these things that make me feel good. And ultimately that's what I did for those 2 years before moving back home. And I'm a serial entrepreneur, but the Mind Body Soul Lab is probably like my first business that's actually like doing well and just sustaining. So I felt like that period of like healing and trying to find myself, really like led me to be able to have this business with my sisters. I know it's not just about my journey. I know it's like all of our journeys, but I felt like I really just try to like push and like no matter what, like I want to ensure that we're successful and whatever success looks like for us. And I've never really had that feeling until like I've healed myself in a sense. And it's not that I healed myself. God healed me. The love around me helped heal me. But ultimately it was the work that I was doing day in and out with therapy, which I found a really amazing therapist in Las Vegas. I miss you. Shout out Ebony. I'm just kidding. And she really helped just like look at my life in a different perspective and like take those tools now, moving back to the Bay and being here for a year. But like I haven't had a therapist for a year. I feel like I need that as kind of like an oil change. I need somebody to just that I can just talk to. Yeah, some maintenance. Exactly. I need a new home church. There's just a lot of things that have changed in my life, even though I've elevated in my career and in my business. Now I'm like back to like ground zero. Now my foundation is kind of all over the place. So now I have to rebuild that. And so again, like we said earlier, it's a constant like waves of that. But being really intentional with what you're doing and what you're like surrounding in your life. Because I know when my life isn't on track, it's because of the things I'm doing. And when they are on track is because now I'm intentional with the things that I do.
This intention piece is a huge pattern I'm hearing from you. And I love to hear that because it's something we talk about often is like set your intentions for the day, right? Even in a yoga class, like set your intention for the practice. But when we don't think of our life with intention, we start thinking things are happening to us randomly or coincidentally. And it's not. There's so much more power and control that we have in our lives than we realize. It is making those intentional choices and finding those things that bring us joy. I love, like, I would never think of making aioli sauce on my own, but like, yes, do it. Like I'm over here. I did have a season where I was like, everything that is like my favorite dish to get out, I want to learn how to make myself. And then I realized I really like being served these meals. So it's a both and. It's a both.
At least you know how to do it though. That's,
right.
That's
at
the
least
key.
I did it once, like we're gonna bring it back eventually at some point.
One day.
Right. But this is interesting. So when you moved to Vegas, was it an active choice of like, I need to get away in order to do this healing work? Or was it like just an opportunity that lined up at that time?
Well, we live in the Bay Area, so it was really like, how much longer can like we sustain here in the Bay Area and grow? And,
was it during COVID time?
It was right before COVID.
Right before, okay.
We moved June 2020. Okay. And it was right before COVID, and I'd been living at my parents' house for like the past 3 years, and it was just kind of like, where do we go from here? Everything's super expensive. We want to have like still a balanced life.
Yeah.
And so I was like, I'm going to find a place in Vegas, babe. And like, you can come in a couple months and get your transfer and I'll see you, then. And he didn't come. I mean, he came to visit, luckily, all the time.
Yeah, but the plans changed.
The plans changed. The transfer didn't happen. And so I was out there and, not single momming it, but, being a mother and having to take care of my daughter by myself when her dad's not there. And it was like, okay, well, now you have this opportunity to really like focus on yourself and focus on your daughter. And obviously she's going through changes. Yeah, I was forced to for sure. Yeah. But that really helped our bond, as she's growing up. And, she's 10 years old, my only child. So we have this like really open, like strong bond as well. I let her talk to me about her crushes and things like that. Some people are like, oh, no, you don't. I'm like, yes, I do.
I'd rather know.
I would rather know. I don't want it to be too late, and she's going to be a teenager soon. But coming back home from Las Vegas, I didn't want to come back. I was like,
oh, interesting.
But it made sense, right? We're paying rent in multiple places. It's just, we're far apart, long distance relationship for 2 years. That wasn't, really working out. And so, as a family, we wanted to be back together, but I did not want to come back home to San Jose. In
terms of your own like healing process that was happening.
Yeah. I felt like I was going backwards. I felt like I was going backwards, moving back home. And I had to have a talk with my therapist, and she was like, Christina, it's a choice.
Yeah.
Everything is a choice, and you don't have to go back home, right? You can choose to continue doing what you're doing. You can choose to live here in Las Vegas and ride out this path, or you can choose to go home if that's what makes the best sense for your family.
Yeah.
And there's no shame in that. And I think that we put so much pressure on ourselves to like be at an upward trajectory all the time, but we don't have to be. It's whatever your plan is, whatever your story looks like. And so when we moved back at the very end of May, and we made our LLC May 10th for the Mind Body Soul Lab.
You said, I'm going to get right to it.
And we're going to get right to it. And I was like, you know what? I'm excited to go back home for this. Yeah. And just to see like where our business has grown and how many lives we've impacted in less than a year. It's just... it's God's plan. It's truly his plan. And, I just kind of like roll with the punches of whatever he brings to my life. I know he brings it there for a reason now. And it's never been so clear. Like this part of my journey has made that like clarity just shine so exciting, bright like a diamond.
That's so exciting. I hear you on this. I really do. And like I said, we haven't really had any depth of conversation besides meeting at a tabling event. This is our real conversation. And I'm just like, oh, I love this girl. Like, what else is in this? Like I want to pull out so much more because there's so much we can learn from you, in this moment. And
vice versa.
Yeah, I find it really interesting because, you said there's this pressure, right, that we always need to be moving upward trajectory. Yeah. And what I'm hearing is that there's beauty in movement, period. Yes. Any kind of movement. Like none of us want to move backward. But sometimes backwards is more about the perspective than the actual action taken, right? So, it's interesting to me because when I moved to Merced, I moved there really wanting to get out of a place. So it wasn't necessarily about I want to move into this. My mindset was I want to move out of this because when I was in North Carolina, my mental health was the worst it had ever been. I was only there for a year, and it was just like, this is not right. Something's off, and I just kept praying, like, open the door that needs to be open because I don't know what's next for me right now. I had never heard of Merced in my life. Like, I'm from Southern California, but we never really explored the Central Valley in Northern California when I was growing up, And then most of
farmland.
Yeah, now I know that. But most of my adult life prior to that was in Arizona. So I really had, like, no concept of, the spans of California culture outside of what I grew up in Southern California. So like
different.
I knew LA culture, I knew Orange County culture, I grew up in the Inland Empire, so I still got a little piece of that agriculture, but dairies is different than, you know, nut farms.
Yes.
So
very different.
Quite different. But Merced was a blessing for me for a season.
Yes.
And
for
I think,
a reason.
Yes, a season for a reason. And I think that was the pieces. Now I think I did grow out of Merced. In who I was in my own healing journey, but I don't think the healing that happened for me could have happened without that time in Merced. I was there for about 2.5, 3 years. So when you're talking about Vegas, I'm like, yeah, like that's when I found the therapist I have now that I absolutely love, like virtual. We do everything virtually, but it was while I was working at UC Merced, and she spoke at an event, and I was like, you just explained mental health to me in a way that nobody ever has, and I need you. Like,
can I book you right now?
And I was like, do you have any space? She had one spot open. I was like, yes.
That's
you know,
mine.
And I should say that was like a spark in a healing journey. Yes. I had to let go of really toxic things, including a toxic relationship that had been going on for 5 years at that point, that again served me for a season, but those last 2 years of it were not the season I needed to be in. Right. So I had to realize what was holding me back and release the attachments, because in my mind at the time, it was better to know what was in front of me, even if it wasn't good. I was like, at least I know what to expect.
Right.
And we get stuck in that, I think, sometimes as women in general. Like, we can get stuck in like, at least I know what to expect, so it's not another stress of change or something new. But when we release those things that are like holding us back and enter into new spaces, new environments, and shift the way we even look at things, magic happens.
Absolutely.
Like real magic. But I was scared once that healing started happening to leave Merced and move here. And similarly, I moved here, a mix of like feeling like I was growing out of it, but what actually made me finally say yes to leaving Merced and moving after those few years was family. Yeah. It was family. And it's like, well,
your village.
If you say this is something you value and prioritize, what are your behaviors saying? Right. You know, and I had to follow my deed, deed and action with my words. And at that time, I think I was telling a lot of folks who I knew, it was like, when people ask, like, what are your values? What's important to you? I was dreaming of having a family, like not knowing that the week I closed the studio was the same week I found out I was pregnant. Like I had no idea. Right. But God knew.
He knows.
God knew.
I truly
and
believe,
was lining it up the whole time.
I truly believe he aligns it for us. And I think when the path doesn't look like what we intended it to be is when we become discouraged and we're not faithful in his plan for our lives. But I one time saw a pastor, he was doing a sermon on YouTube actually, and it just stuck with me. He was giving money out, right? And he was showing that he gave one of his members $100, but then he gave the other person $5, and then he said, wait, come back, I'm gonna give you 10. No, come back, I'm gonna give you a 20. And what he was just basically, the message was just showing them that God might have given them $100, but he's constantly feeding, and their path might have been right away, and for whatever reason that was, but there may be lessons and things along the road that God may be trying to teach you that you truly need in your life before that he gives you that $100. Yes. And so for me, it's just really like embedded in my brain now that like, however this goes, whatever way this shifts, I need to go with it, and I need to roll with the punches, because there's a reason why God has me in this season right now. And it definitely can take me, somewhere else in my life. And so being really just like faithful in his plan, I think is just number one. And one of my favorite quotes is like, fear and faith cannot exist in the same place. And I think we're just so fearful of the unknown constantly. But what's the fun in knowing everything? What is the fun in that? What is the excitement? Because if we know everything, like I'm the type of person, you can't throw a surprise party for me for some reason. Like I have to know, but I'm like, I'm never going to have that feeling of surprise because I want to know everything. I'm a control freak when it comes to that sense. So there's still parts of me that I'm working on. But to me, that's not that big of a deal. I'm like, that's one of my toxic traits. So I'll keep that right there to the side.
It's just in my pocket.
Just in my pocket.
Hold it.
But I could work on that, because it does translate to the bigger things in my life. Like, I don't have to know everything. I can kind of just be okay in the present moment. Yeah. And learn from all the things in my past so that, we can have that like future that we're really looking for.
Definitely. So. Well, this last like bigger topic that I want to pick your brain on is motherhood. Yes. And there's layers to this now, right? Because we've now identified that not only are you a business owner working in the fitness industry and mental health industry, but also you identify as a healer. You've grown up in a biracial blended family. You now have a multiracial daughter. Yes. And thinking about what that looks like in her world and how you've made choices as a mother is piquing my curiosity so much.
Yeah. I'll cry already.
Yeah,
I'm already tearing up right now.
I know. So it's like, I have my son Angel, right?
Yes.
He's 11.
So handsome. I've seen him on Instagram.
He is. He's a little stinker though. I'm like
11,
puberty. But man, I'm so excited to see the way he grows up. Like just being a part of his life is really cool. A blessing. It really is. And it's been a challenge and a learning lesson for me to jump into motherhood as a stepmom, right?
Yeah, bonus mama.
There's a bonus mom. I always love that phrase.
Me
too. Like as a bonus mom, like it's been a journey for me that is full of tears and laughter and joy and all the things. And I don't want to change it. I'm just so excited to see what comes. Yes. And at the same time, it's like there's this duality because I'm still a first-time mom, but now I'm a first-time mom in two ways because I'm about to have my first baby and, embrace my first son in the same year. Yes. And I'm like, all right, this is
You're like, what do I do?
This is happening quickly. Not that I just met him this year. Obviously, I've known him longer than that, but really taking on this role in a new way and all of us moving in together, all of that is happening.
Like combining your families, like officially.
Yes, exactly. So, it just makes me want to learn more and hear stories from other moms. And then at the same time, everybody has a different experience and perspective on motherhood. Yeah. So it's one of those things that I'm like, okay, I have to feel your vibe first before I take any advice, right? Because there's a lot of judgment in the mom community, I'm realizing. Like, I'm not even fully integrated in mom communities yet, but I'm just hearing so much judgment of how we mother. Yeah. So I kind of was just curious, like, have you experienced that yourself as a mom? What does that look like to battle maybe some of the criticism or being told to mother a certain way in your life?
Absolutely. I think that every, mom experiences that, bonus parents as well. I think that there's always going to be someone to say something about how you're raising your kids or how you're taking care of them. That is what I won't entertain as like me as a mama bear is like number one, even when it's like my mom, like, and mind you, and cause I never want my daughter to like not listen to me as far as like me trying to give her genuine advice, but like you have like this sense of ownership over your child, when you have your kids and you're like, no, this is my kid. And there is nothing in this world that I would do to intentionally hurt them or, not guide them in the right direction. So, and I'm going to do it the way that I see fit based on like my experiences, based on how I was raised. So you're going to constantly get that. I get it from my mom. I get it from other moms or even friends where, I, for a long time after having my daughter, again, my daughter's 10 years old. And I think the first few years, like I was always like the girl that likes to get dressed and do my makeup. And, I used to do makeup professionally. And when I had my daughter, I was kind of like looking a little just rough around the edges, right? Like not taking care of myself. I'll get there in a couple years, and I wasn't really like prioritizing myself. And so then when I did get back into the swing of things, of course that goes in waves, but I think that this last span from 2018, like I said, when I moved away and went through my healing journey, I really like just try to empower myself so that I could be a good mom, so that I could, because when I wasn't pouring into myself, like we talked about earlier, it was really hard for me to just feel happy to be a mom in a sense. And you get mom guilt, right? Because you're just like, I'm just constantly taking care of this kid. Everything is about this kid and I'm not doing anything for myself, right? And some parents will judge you and say, oh, well, you signed up for that. Like, this is something that you signed up for, but I'm a human being and I'm still a person. And when my child is 18, off going to go to college and be AKA, she ain't going to be thinking about me, you know? So I need to, you know, I need to still continue to take care of myself. And growing up with a mom like that's from the Philippines, where she's like, girl, I never went on girls trips. I never, you know, went on to these events and gone on podcast interviews or just doing all these things. And I am intentionally living my life in a way where I want my daughter to feel like proud of that and also feel and know that she can also do these similar things, that she doesn't have to just be a mom and a wife, that she can be an entrepreneur and, you know, a pioneer and all of those things. And so I think it's just really important that, you know, you just set the example and continue to do what you do, what you feel is right as a mom. And having like that balance in your life, and people are always going to condemn you for it. They're always going to say like, Lola, you don't post your kids enough. Where are they at? We just were at Raging Waters, or we were just here and there.
You don't know our private life.
they don't know your private life, and they will try to, you know, base it off of that, or make you feel bad because they're unable to, or they might not have a supportive partner that allows you to go have dinner with your girlfriends, you know, even if that's once or twice a month, whatever that looks like for you. And people will be envious of that. And it's unfortunate. If anything, I just try to encourage people and say, take that time for yourself, make that time for yourself. Don't have that guilt as a mother that you can't still be yourself. But of course, I know we talk about, I'm always saying intentional, but it is really important at the same time that you're intentional with your kids, the time you spend with them, what you teach them, what you show them, and what you put them in and things like that. So it's a whole job in itself. Like, forget all the other titles that we have, but like mom that's the biggest one right there.
I love that. Okay. I'm curious then. Your daughter's 10, which means she's had enough time to really develop her voice, right? I'm going to just based off Angel being 11, their voices are
and she's a Gemini, y'all. Clear. I'm sorry.
So, has there been any times where she has said to you or pointed out what she sees when you're making these choices for yourself as a business owner and entrepreneur, seeing you take care of yourself, go on a girls trip? Like, how does she respond to that? Or are there any memories that you have clearly of her saying something related to that?
Well, I will say it's a little different for me. I wish I could say it's something like super sweet, but my daughter is very much like me and my sisters and my mom. She's very sassy. So I might have like a little, you know, dress on, maybe not cleavage, but, you know, just a little glow cut or something. And she'll be like, where are we, in Cabo? And I'm like, stop. I'm like, Cabo, no. What are you? But I did buy this for vacation.
Like, hold on a second.
So she tries to, like, you know, pull up my tops, and she's like my little mom. She's actually my little assistant, I would say. But I do hear people from school and like her principal and her teacher. They're like, Kehlani talks about your business and like how proud she is of you. And
her name is Kehlani.
Her name is Kehlani. Yeah, that's my daughter's name. I love that
name so much.
Thank you. Okay. I named her after my sister and my mom, Kelly and Lonnie. So, and then I was a little bit regretting it because her personality. I'm like, oh, you're a little too feisty.
Just like them.
You're a little too much like them. But yeah, she. You know, people tell me all the time how proud she is of my business and like my sisters, and you know, when she comes to class and stuff, like she fights me about working out, but she's done a lot of classes before. But you know, she'll help me just with even the lights, or you know, handing out glow sticks and just like cleaning up stuff, playing on the little yoga balls and things like that. She just
wants to be part of your life in all the ways. She just
wants to be there, But so at the same, she's like my little broke bestie. Yeah, that's what the true definition. I call her my frenemy sometimes because she is transitioning to that growing up mom. I'm growing and, you know, reaching a little bit of puberty, and that's going to come even quicker. 10 going on, you know, 21. And so, you know, now I just feel like I can be open with her. I can talk to her about real things that's going on. And she gives me like her real opinion. And so I wish, again, that she was just this like super sweet, supportive, but she's real opinionated, and she voices what she feels. And when she doesn't like something, she tells me. And when she does, she lets me know too. So I appreciate that about her. She's a little too much like us. So
I love it. I need to meet her now.
Yes, I'll bring her one day. She wants to start her own podcast, actually. And I told her, just do interviews like your grandpa. Like, And mind you, and just a little TMI, she does her own therapy session just for herself, right? Just a lot of moving and things like that. She's needed her own little maintenance. And she's telling the therapist, again, my dad's 65. She's like, yeah, my papa's 72. He walks so beautifully, though. He walks better than me. And I'm like, girl, my dad, I'm in the other side of the door, like, he's 65. He's not, he's not 72. Trying to like eavesdrop, just making sure she's good. But yeah, so that's Kehlani. So funny. When you meet her, you'll see all that personality.
All the feistiness. I'll take it. Okay, so we are coming to the end of this, and I haven't done this before, but I just feel like it's going to be a little fun because you seem like you're ready for the challenge.
Yes,
yeah, you ready for a little challenge?
She ready.
Okay. So we're going to finish this. You've heard of like the hot seat when they do like rapid fire questions about you. Mm-hmm. We're going to do something similar, but as tips.
Okay.
So I will say for blank. So if I said like for Lolo, give me the first tip on your mind that you would have for me.
Okay.
But we'll go through a few.
Okay.
Yeah?
Okay. Yeah.
Okay. For moms.
Stay 10 toes down as a woman first. Mom second.
For current entrepreneurs,
don't give up. No matter what anyone says, bet on yourself always, especially if you really feel that drive and that passion for your business. Keep going.
For a mom in a blended family,
another one, stay your ground, stay 10 toes down, represent your family in, the best way that you can. And I would always say, speak up for them, right? And don't let anyone assume, but don't feed into ignorance.
Mm-hmm. For somebody who wants to start their business, but is afraid to.
Do it. Again, it's betting on yourself is like the greatest thing that I've ever done for myself, was really believing in myself. And I failed a lot of times. I've had many little businesses that did not succeed. And I don't know if this one's going to fully succeed, but I'm going to keep pushing until something, skyrockets.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Okay, just 3 more.
Okay.
3 more. For somebody who doesn't know if they'll make it to tomorrow.
Enjoy every second. Enjoy every moment, embrace it, love on your family, love on whoever loves on you. Honestly, we're all sitting here not knowing if tomorrow is going to happen or tomorrow is promised. So just really just loving on who loves on you, I think is like the most important part, honestly, letting them know that you're here and that you're there for them till it ends.
Mm-hmm. For Kehlani.
For Kehlani, I want you to continue to be this strong, vivacious, crazy young woman, and know that like mom is always going to be here for you, right, wrong, indifferent. Even when you're completely wrong and you think you're going to get in trouble, grounded, whooping. Hope there's no mandated reporters on here. I'm just totally kidding. But mom's going to be here, and so is dad. And we're going to, come to your rescue anytime. And not just rescue, Kay, but honestly, just be there to help teach you, mold you, and whatever you decide, like, we're going to support you. So
last one for Christina.
For Christina. See, you made me cry, Lola. What is this? Healing with Lolo. I thought it was uplift with Lolo. Christina, you're doing your thing. I'm so proud of you. Keep going. The sky is the limit, actually, and even beyond that. And stay close to God always.
God is within you, girl.
Yes.
I feel it. I hear it. I see it. Thank you so much for sharing your journey with me, and for whoever's listening and watching. I know this is going to touch and inspire a lot of folks. And I know, even at minimum, that Kay's going to love hearing you tell your story one day and be able to come back to this. So I'm excited to see what you are going to continue to do, growing your business, growing your life, making an impact on your own family, and clearly on a lot of families that need to learn what it looks like to be blended and joyful. Right?
Yes.
So
you got me crying, Lolo. Thank you.
Yay, tears. I told you it's
so
the
much.
Release, right? We got to release in order to move.
Yes, absolutely. This is a great release. So thank you so much for having me.
Thank you. So if folks want to get in touch with you, want to talk about your story with you, or get connected with your business, where can they reach you?
Yeah, absolutely. You can reach our business at the Mind Body Soul Lab on Instagram. We're also on TikTok at the MBS Lab. We're actually working on our website and things like that right now, but our Linktree and our social media platforms has really helped elevate us. So we're also at linktree.com / the MBS Lab. And then me personally, you can find me on Instagram at MBS Chris _ and Chris is CHRIS. And yeah, that's where you can find me.
Perfect. Well, then that's the end. That's a wrap. Thank you so much, girl.
Thank you, Lolo. Yay. Thank you for having me.
We did it.
We did it.
Thank you for tuning in to the Here to Uplift podcast. New episodes are airing every week with some bonus episodes in between too. So make sure you stay tuned by subscribing, following, liking, and engaging with us to let us know what topics you're most interested in and what might inspire you along this journey. We're going to keep working hard on our end because we are here to uplift not only ourselves, but our community too, and that includes you. So I can't wait for you to hear the next episode. But for now, do your thing, let's get it, and let's keep moving forward. Uplift yourself, friends. You got this.